started out this morning saying that we were spiritual beings having a human experience. There is just such a spiritual being, and one of the things that convinces me that that's true, there's such a spiritual being in the house with us tonight. The only reason that he's still alive is because he's a spiritual being having a human experience, because this brother has laid his life and his body and his mind and his reputation and his fortune on the line wherever on the planet he is needed for the struggle. That person is Brother Dick Gregory. I'd like for him to stand up and let us recognize him. And I've just been told by Brother Browder that Francis needs 2 minutes, so I want to remind you, sitting next to Brother Gregory is the first speaker for tomorrow morning, Dr. Layla Africa, starting promptly at 9. You know,
I thought that was Dick slipping in the back. How you doing, brother? Well, and my wife is here, and you know, Dick went to Africa early on before he actually physically got there. We were blessed by him and his wife, Lil, to take their oldest children, Lynn and Michelle, to Africa. They were 11 and 8 when they went to Africa with us in 1970. They made it to Africa before Brother Dick. And I understand they're doing fine. It's been a pleasure to be a part of the family with our brother.
And I found an African proverb that covers Brother Gregory, Brother Jeffries, Sister Welsing, who's coming on, because, you know, they've been so courageous in this struggle, and we often wonder, you know, how can they do that day in and day out? And this African proverb says that courage is the fruit of a decision made in the heart. Courage is the fruit of a decision made in the heart. So we bow down to you, my brother. To you, my brother. Okay, Brother Jeffries got a little announcement.
I'm going to have to get that quote from Dr. Giselle, because in putting this book together that I'm writing, that's one of the things I'm dealing with. That our leadership at a certain particular point represents a role model. But then they move past the stage of role model, they become mind models, because they have the mental toughness to make a decision to do correct for our people. But then at a certain point, they're ready to give their life in the struggle, and they become spirit models. So that whole frame of reference, role model, mind model, and spirit model, we're developing. But I'm trying to hang here because I want to be able to greet our sister with a nice big hug as she comes on stage. And we do have the power packs available for you, those of you who are interested in some of this information and whatnot we're talking about, and they'll be available. So if Sister Dr.Frances Cress Welsing is here, I want the TV to see me greet her as an African.
Everyone. Hey, John, wait a minute. Can you get this out? I can't put it down like this. I'm too tall. Okay, good evening again. Don't worry. I'm not going to keep the building open till midnight. But I am happy to join you this evening at the 8th Melanin Conference. And I thought that I would begin by dedicating my remarks to some of my ancestors. To my grandfather, Dr. Henry Clay Cress, who died in 1909. And to my father, Dr. Henry N. Cress, who died in 1983. And to my mother, who is still with us. My mother was a teacher, and as I look back and think about Okay. As I look back and think about my mother as a teacher and a person who taught us, the girls in my family, there are three of us, to, say what you think and to have the courage to say the things that are on your mind. To my grandfather, because he was a physician in Chicago and he was very political. And he died long before I was born, but my grandmother used to say, your grandfather was a race man. That his primary concern was not just what was going on in his office, but the welfare and the well-being of black people and the black race. And not long ago, I guess it's been 15 years ago, my father happened to pull out of a trunk in the basement some things that his father had written. He didn't have that much familiarity with his father because his father died when he was about 5 years of age. But these writings remained, and I don't know that my father had looked at them earlier in his life, but my grandfather, who passed in 1909, had written about how dare people think that they are superior because of the white color of their skin. I didn't know that when I started writing. So my grandfather had written about that. And my father, I looked like my father, and from the time I could hear my father, people would say, oh, she's going to be a doctor just like her father. But my father was also political, maybe not as political as his father. But when I sat down in 1968-69 at the dining room table in our home and was sharing with my father my ideas that came to be known as the Cress theory of color confrontation and racism, talking about melanin in the late 1960s, and my father said to me, now you must find out what is in the melanin. And I say that that statement on the part of my father opened the door for black people focusing on the topic of melanin, because it encouraged me, after I had written the Cress theory, after I had said that the thing that was motivating people who classify themselves as white was the fact that they did not have melanin and that they were envious and feeling vulnerable to the people who did have melanin, and went further from writing the Cress theory. And I feel that this inspiration and motivation came from my father to my paper in 1972, Melanin, the Neurochemical Basis for Soul. And my paper in 1975 that was published in the Urban Health Journal, Melanin and the Active Skin Melanocyte, and laying out the concept that melanin, the melanocyte, was a sense receptor. And whereas I was fought and ridiculed, I was at that time a professor at Howard University College of Medicine, and whereas I was ridiculed, these ideas don't make any sense when a professor at Harvard University read the paper about the active skin melanocyte, blacks, the exact title was Blacks, Hypertension, and the Active Skin Melanocyte. I got this long, several-page, single-space letter saying, you have opened the door for all kinds of research. I never responded back because I was not going to give my ideas to that source. And I'm sorry that I missed hearing today, or maybe it was yesterday, somebody I think gave a paper on George Washington Carver and melanin. Okay, that was today, because I wanted to hear that, because 3 years ago at the National Medical Association, I gave a paper on the Cress theory, on the George Washington Carver phenomenon. So I don't know what was said in that paper, but I maintain that George Washington Carver's ability to communicate with plants, when he said the plants speak to him, that he was really, because the pigment, the black pigment in the melanocyte, has the greatest potential to pick up all energy, that actually the energy frequencies from the plant and Dr. George Washington Carver's very black skin, that he was tuning in and picking up this energy frequency information and translating it in terms of what plants could do, what they were capable of doing. So maybe I'll get the tapes and hear someone else's ideas on that topic. But I thought that in the short time that I'm speaking to you this evening, that I would address myself to what I consider to be very, very critical questions. That we can talk about melanin, but at this point in time, in terms of what we see happening in front of us via television and via the media, that the question that we must ask ourselves is that can we as individual black people protect our melanin? Can we collectively protect melanin on this planet? Because I think that a very significant dialogue is going on with us. And if we're not looking broadly, we will miss the communication from the white side of the chessboard. I say that the most important analogy that we can use to center ourselves in reality of today's world is to understand that we are at a gigantic global chessboard. The white side of the chessboard is playing white supremacy for white genetic survival. And it is waging war on the black side of the chessboard where all people of color are placed. The black people being the most significant people representing the black side of the chessboard because we have the greatest quantity of melanin that can challenge white genetic survival in the perception of the people, the tiny minority of people on this planet who classify themselves as white. But that white side of the chessboard has been dialoguing with us for the past several thousand years, but let's just bring it up to present time and the last several months. I maintain that that white side of the chessboard is saying to us, I can kill 2 million of you at a time if I want. And I hope everybody looked at the pictures of the people in Rwanda and saw the high concentration of melanin in the people in Rwanda. That melanin is not protected. They tell us 1 million people were killed. I say they probably killed 2 million. And in my mind, 2 million were killed until proven otherwise. They have already announced to us that their virus that they manufactured, HIV, is going to kill 50 million people with melanin on the African continent. Several years back, getting us accustomed to the slaughter and destruction of melanin on this planet, they served us up Jonestown and said, I can kill 1,000 of you at a blow and make you not even look at it or think about it. Or I can kill you 20 at a time, when I kill the people, the children in Atlanta. Or I can kill you by the hundreds in the urban centers of this area of the world. I am moving all over this planet, destroying melanated people and maximally melanated people anytime I get ready to think about it. And we have a gentleman in the White House who's saying my ratings are falling. But I can always get high ratings in the system of white supremacy if I just move out and kill some melanated people. Kill them in Panama, kill them in Grenada, kill them in Haiti, let them drown in boats anytime we get ready to do so. So do you understand my question? We can talk about melanin, but the critical question is, can we protect melanin? And they're saying up in our faces, you can't do anything about what I decide to do to you. Now, if we don't look at that challenge, if we direct our attention to other things, a massive movement is going on. Melanin is being destroyed. But the system of white supremacy says, I will be able, by offering grants, I will be able by offering jobs, to tell you that you are the cause of the death of black people. I'll be doing it, but I'll make you focus on yourself and try to figure out how you can destroy one another. I'll do it to you in Rwanda. I'll set up the Hutu and I'll set up the Tutsis. I will give each group all the weapons they need. And I say, now I have taught you to hate your melanated selves. Now you fight each other. I'll do it to you on the streets in Los Angeles. I'll set up one group, the Crips, and another group, the Bloods. I'll set up all kind of Muslim groups and say, fight each other. I know I can get you to do it because I have programmed you for thousands of years to hate black. But if we don't see that this war is on the table, we will go off focusing on something else altogether, and the slaughter will continue. So I say, and I know you've heard me say this before, that when I say that the system of racism, white supremacy, is the critical thing that we must focus on, because that is what is waging war against us. The white people came up with a plan some years back, Global 2000, in which they said it's too many people of color on this planet. By the year 2000, it's necessary to get rid of 2 billion. They are about business. They are about serious business, removing as they deem necessary the people of melanin on this planet. If we do not understand and make an analysis that this is fundamental, it is this dynamic that is taking us out. Everything that we look at, everything else, I believe, and I could be wrong, but as it comes to me, it will be in vain. Everything that we are studying is important. Everything that we look at has high level significance. But if we are not understanding this massive war and what is at stake, I believe we will not be able to apply our energy force in a laser-type manner so that we really begin to neutralize the war that is coming at us. To me, it is critically essential for us to develop or to articulate a new world order of dialogue. At each and every turn, we have to be saying to the white side of the chessboard, to the people globally who classify themselves as white. There's no other reason for people to classify themselves as white on this planet other than for the purpose of practicing white supremacy. And so if we begin to escalate, I'm going to ask the people if they let the little babies be quiet because they're running up and down is getting at me at this late hour. We have to be able to dialogue back to them and say we understand this war that is being waged against us, because if we don't label it for what it is, then they'll just keep that train rolling against us, and we just look up and more black people are dead everywhere. But we're not telling them, look, we understand what you're doing, and we understand precisely why you are doing it. They are working very, very hard to get us away from talking about racism, white supremacy. They are working very hard. Let's change the dialogue. Let's force them into a change of dialogue. We can do it by giving them grants to talk about multiculturalism, by giving them grants to talk about diversity, to tell them, oh, we don't talk about racism any longer. All this talk about victimizations, that's ridiculous. And so trying to slide us away from proper focus. But we have to hold the line and stay on course. Say, you can talk about diversity if you want. Why don't you sit over there and write the definition of what you mean by diversity? You can focus on multiculturalism if you want. This is our dialogue to the white side of the chessboard. Sit over and define what it is that you're talking about. I've asked them, what do you mean by diversity? They can't answer it. What do you mean by multiculturalism? They can't answer it. These are play words and play concepts that they try to get us to focus on so we will not be keeping our eye on the proverbial ball. We have to say, no, we're going to hold the line. You can talk about whatever it is that you want. But all of our ancestors and all of the scholars and all of the people who have gotten old trying to show us how to focus, everything our grandparents ever said to us is these people are doing something that is unjust and incorrect. And mind you, I'm not saying hate white people. I'm not saying disrespect white people. If you sit down to play a game of chess, you can't beat your opponent if you're getting wound up in hate. If you go on the basketball court or the football field and intend to beat your opponent, you cannot do it if you, I hate them, oh, no. Know that they're coming on the field to play their very best hand. And if you're confident in yourself, you can say, hey, play your best game. I'm ready for you. Because I'm going to be playing my best game. What is at stake is whether we are going to have justice on this planet. White supremacy is antithetical to justice. You cannot have white supremacy and have justice at the same time. I believe that the system of white supremacy puts the people that they say who are supposed to know about justice in black robes, because you have to have melanin to understand what balance in this universe really is. So we are the people who are peculiarly suited to bring justice to this planet. I believe that is our mission. Somebody told me that Mahatma Gandhi, somebody said, ask him, what is the purpose or the role of the Negro? And he is supposed to have answered by saying, the Negro will bring justice to planet Earth. And I believe that that is correct because we are the mothers and fathers of everybody on this planet. It's not even open to argument. If you know fundamental biology, you know that white can only produce white. But crystal black can produce a mutation to albinism, and that will be a white person. Someone just brought me a picture from some of the orphans, all of the hundreds of thousands of black children who have been orphaned by this white supremacy orchestrated war in Rwanda. But the picture was significant because it was all of these little children who no longer have mothers and fathers, sleeping on little pallets on the floor, one next to another. But right there in the center of that picture was a little albino Rwandan child. You see, so that black producing white is not a mystery in biology. Black people are the only people, by producing a mutation to albinism, crossing the albino with the black, that you get the entire color spectrum that we call mankind or humankind. If they can get us to deviate from that understanding, that's an understanding that they produce. But they are busy now, for example, many of the zoos who have albino tigers, the white tigers that they boast about. Many of them are now saying, oh no, in our zoo right here in Washington, D.C., oh no, that's not an albino. That's just the white type. No. That's an albino tiger. The mother and father were brown tigers. But then you can make one albino tiger and eventually you can get another one if they're male and female, mix them together, and then you start producing a white race of albino tigers. So that the question of who is the first person on this planet should not even be a question to anyone who knows basic biology. Somebody told me that black people used to say, I received this secondhand, that in the ghettos where they have us living, cramped, overcrowded, and also not necessarily clean sometimes, and roaches would be proliferating. And somebody said black people used to insult each other by saying, you got so many roaches, you even have some white ones. That after you have a buildup of a population at a certain level, you begin to get some mutations to albinism. So I had never heard that, but that's what I was told. So like I said, I wrote the Cress Theory of Color Confrontation 1968-1969, presented it for the first time at the National Medical Association section on neurology and psychiatry. Since I wrote that paper discussing why white people behave in the way that they do, I have been waiting for another person to write a theory to explain white people's behavior, and primarily white people. I asked them, do you have another explanation for why white people behave in the way that they do, other than their fear of genetic annihilation on a planet where they are dominated numerically by people of color and also genetically, because the ability to produce melanin is a dominant genetic trait that can cause white genetic annihilation. I even had a little ad like run in the Palm Beach Gazette in Florida. If anybody on this planet has a better explanation, please send it to me. Because I want a theory that's correct. So if mine is not correct, no challenges. No challenges to my saying that white people are mutants. There's a woman, I can't remember the name of the book, 2 weeks ago in the New York Times. A white woman said, "We are mutants." How many people saw that? I don't remember. Maybe you know the title of that book. You can tell us later. But she said, "We're mutants," talking to fellow white people, "and we need to face it." Check that. We're mutants, and we need to face it. So I say that we can proceed with a theory. I was talking at the Black Caucus this afternoon, told a group of people there. A white banker here in the District of Columbia. Black people in the, Black History Month, when we can talk about our ideas a little bit freely, that 1 month, without getting into too much trouble. Black people asked me to come and talk at this bank for the black employees, and of course the white people can attend, about racism. And I talked about the Cress theory. And at the end of the discussion, the white banker, his bank, came up to me, very polite, very white hair, blue eyes. He said, "You're right about what you're saying. But what can you do about it?" I'm saying it kind of up in your face, but he was just polite, shaking my hand. But what can you do about it? Which is the same thing that we're being shown. We'll go into Haiti. Haiti, look at those blue-black people in Haiti. All of that melanin. People who fought white supremacy in a war and won. We can wipe it out whenever we want to, and we certainly don't want melanin plus determination coming over to this area of the world and infecting the melanated people who don't always have a whole lot of determination. A mutant might come up that is really melanated and really determined, and then there would be a serious problem. So I believe that it is time for us, if we don't see the war, we're in serious trouble. If we don't see the threat, we are in serious trouble. Down at the Black Caucus, they were giving all the statistics. 66% of black children being born in single-family households. That's not to demean that household. White supremacy is saying, I'm taking away the conditions for enhancing black masculinity. I'm taking away the conditions through which you might produce soldiers to carry on activity on your side of the chessboard. In addition, since I have your situation so strung out and you watch more television than anybody else, I'm going to serve up to you men dressed as women. And I'm going to have you sit there in your frustration, women and male children, and serve up laughingly in your face black men dressed as women. Do you all understand me? This is a serious war. And some people may disagree with me. But the war against the Semites is a war to look at. The Semites even now are saying, I'm white. I have an article from the Washington Post where the president in Israel talking to the leaders of the Falash, the Ethiopian Jews, who were feeling racist discrimination from the lighter people against the darker people in the state of Israel. This is recently. And so he said, you ought to be glad that we as a white nation invited you in and let you come and live with us. That's stupidity on their part. Because the white people said to them, you're not white. The legal code in this country says Semites of the Jewish religion are of a distinctly different race. So I say, even though they are as confused as they can be, and they are hoping to save themselves by serving us up to white supremacy. I had a Jewish girl tell me, Frances, it was a meeting at my house right here in Washington, 15 years ago or so. It was a meeting at my house, all Jewish people. We met to discuss the fact that the same thing is getting ready to happen to you all that happened to us. We met, Frances, to discuss whether we would help you all. We took a vote, Frances. We voted we would not help you all because we had worked too hard to save ourselves. They're still working hard to save themselves. Look, they're the bad ones. It's not us. You thought we were the bad ones in Europe, but no. See, it's them. Look at them. Look at them. Look at them on television. See, they're gangsters. We'll even get some of their children to sing these bad songs. See, look, they're the enemy. Hey, it's not us. Save us. We're with you. Do you all understand me? When somebody is doing that, it's just like many black people have people in their family because of the miscegenation that took place under white supremacy. Greece and Rome went into Africa, raped the women, and produced a mulatto group of people there's called in Latin Semites. We have many black people who can pass for white. Are we all aware of that? Produced by the slave master raping African women. Start reading the slave narratives. Start reading those documents that have listed the people on the plantation, where they are classified as Negro mulatto. You see, and see long lists of mulatto, meaning products of the slave master raping enslaved African women. And so none of the people who are known, even though they can pass for white, if white people know it, they no longer accept that passing. The black lady in Louisiana who could pass for white, she said, I'm basically white. I'm going to court and get my papers changed. This is a case, recent case. The judge said, I'm sorry. You cannot be reclassified. You cannot maintain white genetic survival and not know where those genes from melanin are for the most part. Now somebody will say, well, Dr. Welsing is wrong. Have you seen the television shows recently? Where every other program has a black man who's having sex with 5 white women? Have you seen those talk shows? Stay home sometimes in the morning. See, but that's to fake us out. That's to fake us out and make us think, oh, this is not where the problem is. we're not concerned about white genetic annihilation. But when I was on Ron Reagan, when he had that television show coming from California, he had a show on, I guess, racism or people who hate. He had me on that show. I said, but I don't hate white people. But I talked about racism. And next to me was Tom Metzger from Aryan Nations. White supremacists. He was very polite, and I was very polite to him. During the commercial break, I touched him on his arm, and I said, tell me something. How many white people would you say are concerned about white genetic annihilation? See, talk to white people. Ask them questions. Have your questions ready. When you feel you're in social situations with a friend, have your questions ready. Learn. Be polite. So he said, nearly all of them. But they're angry at me because they don't want to admit it. And I touched him on his sleeve and I said, that's precisely what I thought. That's precisely what I thought. So here is somebody, one of the outspoken upholders of white supremacy, who said, no, this is our fundamental concern. So if we begin to understand that, see, it becomes disturbing if we don't love our black selves enough to be comfortable in the presence of somebody who says, I hate you. I remember being on the Phil Donahue show, talking about the Cress theory. Laid out the Cress theory. A white lady in the audience got up and said, according to what she says, I'm a racist. This was a nice lady, polite, telling the truth. But a black lady stood up. Oh, I'm insulted. How could she? No, oh, wait, hold it. If somebody says, I hate you, you say, thank you very much for telling me. I know what to expect. Not why do you say that? Because you got enough love and respect for your black self that you're not begging for somebody else to like you, approve of you, and validate you. So we need to get out of that. If I could influence brothers and sisters in those states where they fly that Confederate flag, I say, stop protesting. Tell them to fly it. This is a white supremacy system. Why shouldn't they have a flag that says it? Do you understand what I'm saying? Why want somebody to lie to you, taking the flag down and practicing white supremacy? So if they practice white supremacy, say, fly that one. Put the swastika up. Fly it. You see, meaning we understand this is a white supremacy state. We're not arguing about that. Do you know what would happen if we took that position? They'd take that flag down. They say, uh-oh. Uh-oh. They are getting comfortable dealing with reality. We are in serious trouble if they are not going to lie to themselves. Oh no, this is a democracy. That's like Mr. Clinton talking about, we are bringing democracy to Haiti. Hey, do we have so-called democracy here for the black people in the District of Columbia? We don't have voting senators. We don't have voting people in the House of Representatives. We asked for home rule. They said you can't have it. So is he talking about democracy, justice? The answer is no. It's just like he knows anytime I get ready, I can go into black people's church. stand in front of them and smile 3 times. I only have to smile at them 3 times. And they'll just eat up anything I say. Oh, I'll put on some dark glasses and get a saxophone. I can blow them out of the water if I do that. I can even walk in front of them and start talking about family values. Someone who some lady is accusing him of asking her to suck his you-know-what is going to come and talk to us about family values. African descendants of black people and African people who were pulled away from the mother continent. Families torn apart. Not allowed to have families. No apologies to date. And we're going to need somebody to love us so much that we're going to say, you can come in front of us and dare to talk about family values. Or when you just passed a crime bill where black men are going to be incarcerated forever, where no black child, if they can do anything about it, is going to have a father in the home, and no black lady is going to be able to have a man who has a full-time job. And you're going to come in our church, and we're going to let you come and talk about family values, and then we're going to sing and smile and hug you at the end. No, people, we got to wake up. See, no. You might force us to let you come in, but we can sit in silence, or we can sit and look like that does not sound like it makes sense to us. Do you understand what I'm saying? See, if we talk about melanin and don't get in love with melanin, the little children in the high schools are crying here in the District of Columbia. The little highly melanated girls come crying to the psychiatrist because the little boys say to them, we don't date anybody as black as you. Do you all understand me? Did I say, do you all understand me? What good does it do to talk about melanin and not be in love with crystal black? So we've got a lot of work to do. And the people who are waging war against us know exactly and precisely where we are. That's why they run those programs out. Martin, that program called Martin? Fresh Prince? You see black men just laughing and clowning and clowning and laughing. We're in a war. War is being waged against us. We don't need to talk about family, we just need to talk about survival units. Because the men are gone. That means a Holocaust, a genocide is occurring. Oh, stop, it says. I know no black person invented this thing. I'm only kidding. I'm going to definitely respect it. But do you all understand where I'm coming from? I'm saying face the fact of the war. Melanin is a most valuable substance. The enemy is saying, I can destroy it anytime I want. The question is, can you protect your own melanin? Can you protect your offspring that are melanated? Can you protect global melanin? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We have a very long day tomorrow, so we're going to start promptly at 9 a.m. The vendors will be open tomorrow from 9 until 7 p.m. We want you to enjoy fraternizing and talking to each other, but you have to do it outside of the building because the brothers have to lock this building down by 11. They have to lock it up and be closed and out of here, which is why we've had to be so rigid about the time. Thank you so much for your time and attention. See you tomorrow morning.